Have you ever been told you're tone deaf? Or convinced yourself that you don't have a good ear for music? Or that playing by ear was impossible for you? Well, if you're a bassist watching this video, I'm nearly certain that you are not tone deaf, and I have a 3-part test that can prove it to you. You see, I've taught more than 2,500 bassists to play by ear, and so many of those students had spent years believing that they were tone deaf. Most of that time, this belief started early, like when they first tried to play bass line by ear and it didn't kind of click right away, so they'd get frustrated, assume they didn't have the talent for playing by ear, and then they'd stop trying altogether. It became this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that held their playing back for years. Instead of the freedom to just jam with friends or play what they heard, they ended up chained to tab sites and song tutorials, or needing to crane and see the guitarist's chord shapes to know what notes to play. But here's the thing, once they understood what tone deafness actually was, they realized that they weren't tone deaf at all. And when they stuck with it, they found that they could actually play by ear, and a lot of the time do it much sooner than they ever expected. So what actually is tone deafness? It's not just something that people say, it is a legitimately recognized medical condition. The medical name is amusia, and it basically blocks people from recognizing and processing pitch. So for example, it prevents people from being able to tell the difference between low notes or high notes. Or if I played a super familiar melody with one note that's really super obviously glaringly wrong, someone with amusia likely wouldn't notice at all. However, and most importantly for us, most people with amusia, people who actually have tone deafness, they don't really get much out of music. Amusia generally kind of strips away enjoyment of music, so it isn't something that someone with amusia loves or likes or even really enjoys that much. Lots of people with amusia describe music as sounding like a bunch of noise. And that is your first clue that you are not tone deaf. You're here, you're watching a bass video. You obviously care about music. Think about it, people with real amusia don't really enjoy music that much. They don't usually play it. They don't wonder about playing by ear. They don't watch YouTube videos about getting better at their instrument, but you do. The fact that you love music enough to want to improve at bass, that's proof that you can probably recognize pitch. It just means that you haven't yet trained that ability yet. So that is a big clue you're not tone deaf, but I promised you proof, right? So here is a tone deafness test that you can do. Part 1 of the test, very simple. People with amusia can't tell when wrong notes are being played a lot of the time. So what I'm gonna do is play a melody that you hopefully know. I'll play the alphabet song, the ABC song, and your job is to tell me which of the notes sounds out of place or incorrect. All right, here we go. Which of those notes was out of place? If you're singing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, which one of them sounds out of place? It's the E, F part, right? A, B, C, D, E, F. That note is the one that is out of place, right? If you can tell that was the out of place note, then that shows that you can process pitch, and therefore you are not tone deaf at all. Need more proof though? Part 2, also very simple. I'm gonna cover my hands and just play 2 notes. Your job is simple, tell me which one sounds higher. And we're gonna do this 5 times, so I'll play note 1, then note 2. Just pick one which sounds higher, and feel free to pause or replay as much as you need. Now, quick tip before we start though, if you are listening through phone speakers, try switching to headphones or better speakers if you can. Phone speakers often struggle with low bass notes, so you'll get much clearer results with headphones or speakers. All right, round 1, let's cover my hands. Note 1, here's note 2. Okay, here's round 2. Note 1, and here's note 2. Okay, here's round 3. Here's note 1. Here's note 2. Here's round, 4? Here's note 1. And here is note 2. Last one, here's note 1. And here's note 2. Now, if you were truly medically tone deaf, you would just be guessing randomly here because a musia would not let you process that pitch, which would mean you would get it right roughly half the time. However, in every round of this test, note 2 was the answer. Note 2 was the higher one. So if you picked note 2 most, or even better, all of the time, then congrats, you're probably not tone deaf. If you want to make this kind of statistically significant, we'd have to do a lot more rounds of this test, but let's move on to part 3 of this test for even further proof. This part, also very simple. You know how little kids on the playgrounds, they want to be mean or they want to tease someone, they'll do this thing where they go, yeah, 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 yeah. Well, your job in part 3 is to play the role of my 6-year-old bully and bully me a little bit. So give it a try, go, yeah, 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 don't worry, I can take it. If you really want to commit to the bit, give it one of these, yeah, 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 yeah. But pause the video for a second and give this a go, although maybe not if you're on a bus watching this or a train or something, might be a bit strange for people around you. Now, what does doing this prove? What does this nya, 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 nya thing prove? Well, that taunt is actually a melody. And it was this kind of very sneaky way of me getting you to sing something. Not any specific pitches, but to nail the kind of contour, the kind of relative shape of that little phrase. Whatever note you started on, doesn't matter what it is, the only thing that matters is that whether you go from that starting point down a little bit, then up above your starting note, then back down to that starting note, and then down again to that first one that you went to when you went away from the first note. Someone who is legitimately tone deaf would not be able to do this kind of thing. And even if you kind of lost the center of your starting note and kind of drifted a little bit out of tune, that's fine as well. Even just being able to get the kind of vibe of that melodic shape is enough to prove to me, and hopefully to yourself, that you are not tone deaf at all. Now, if you thought you were tone deaf, that belief might actually make sense because some people end up thinking they're tone deaf for very good reasons. I had one student in my Level Up Your Ear course who was in his late 60s who had fully believed he was tone deaf for more than 50 years because in his primary school choir, the teacher didn't want him singing for whatever reason. So she told him that he had a horrible ear, was hopelessly tone deaf, and told him just to mime the words. And this poor dude, he just kind of accepted that he was tone deaf, even though he loved music and obviously wasn't tone deaf at all because, again, he learned to play by ear. And that's the key here. When the overwhelming majority of people say that they're tone deaf, they're not really saying that they have some kind of medical condition that stops them processing pitch. What they're really saying is more along the lines of, I'm not comfortable trying to learn to play things by ear. Or maybe, I've tried to play by ear, but I don't know how. Or in some cases, it's, someone told me I was tone deaf and I spent my whole life believing it. Honestly, this story is one I heard from so many students, both inside my Level Up Your Ear course and my ear opening challenge. Once those students had proof that they weren't actually tone deaf, just untrained, playing by ear suddenly felt a lot more doable for them, even fun. And just like these students, you also now have proof that you are not tone deaf either. Not only because of the circumstances that brought you to this video, but also because you could probably do the things in the tone deaf test. And if you can pass that test, it means that it is possible for you to learn to put on a song and figure out the bass line without tabs. Or you can go to a jam session, play songs you've never heard before because you can hear your way through it. You're not tone deaf. Your ear is just a little bit untrained. But playing by ear, that is a skill, and it's one that you can learn. And if you want to start learning it, you can check out this video where I go through the very first step towards spontaneously jamming with other musicians and finally ditching tabs and song tutorials to learn bass lines from recordings. It's simpler than you might think, so I'll see you in there.